Welcome back, everybody. This is Dan John from danjohnuniversity.com. And reminder, if you have questions, email them to me at podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. I'll do my best to answer each and every one. I find it an honor that people trust me to answer their questions, so here we go. Before I begin, I want to tell you a funny story. I've got this great little coaching circle that I work with, and it's just a fun little story because if you know my work, you know how much emphasis I put on community. Our workouts at my home gym are called Intentional Community. We get together on purpose to help each other out. The Coyote Point Kettlebell Club, the PDF is available at the site for free. 52 pages on how to start your own kettlebell club. It's always about the community, but the thing I like best about community, and it's great. I mean, if, for example, we'll be talking about, for example, on the group calls, someone will say, I'm doing easy strength, and then an issue will come up. And before I get a chance to answer, from, my lofty cloud in the sky, someone else will say, well, and then make a very clear, simple addition that I would talk for 5 hours on, but they'll answer it in a sentence or two with great clarity, and we move on. Well, I had a story this week that was kind of funny. We were discussing traveling. Now, a lot of people I work with travel a lot, either because they're in the military or because they're professional athletes or because they're successful in life and have to travel around a lot because of their job makes them travel a lot, or the business they own. And so we always recommend things for traveling. Like I always travel with the Brett Contreras glute loop and a Perform Better miniband. Oh, I got nailed for being a shill. By the way, I get nothing from these people for saying that. I just like to be very honest about what equipment I do use. And one of the things that's funny is if you decide to travel with protein powder, it's really, it's a funny side issue. If you're taking a white powder in a bag internationally, there are times where, certain government agencies will probably find that to be a bad thing. If you go to some places, it might really be a bad thing. So, I always tell people if you're going to travel, always travel with your protein. Buy a new container that's unopened, and at least it'll, help out. Well, and if you do decide to travel with protein, like in the Nation or something like that, or just in a car, you really got to spend your time being smart about how you bag it. Well, in our conversation this week, there was a funny little side story where one of our people didn't follow that rule of using the bag correctly, and so chocolate protein powder spilled everywhere in their suitcase. If you've ever had to clean up protein powder, it seems to find its way into everything. So we started having a conversation about using Ziploc bags. This is my Ziploc bag with my onion in it, a very pungent onion, I should say. Well, in real time, one of the people picked up a Ziploc bag and then gave a very intense tutorial on how, onion's strong, on how to close a Ziploc bag. And I got to tell you, that's why I love working in groups. That's why I love having community. That was like one of the funniest, I don't know if it lasted 10 seconds or not, but the intensity of our two members, the intensity of the one member showing the dynamics of a Ziploc bag, and the other member just taking it, because whenever we do something stupid, there's always someone there close by to help out. So I don't know. I thought it was funny, but I think the moral of the story is, no matter what you're doing, folks, do your best to get in community, and if you can, as best you can. If someone's on the same path you're doing easy strength for fat loss with Olympic lifting, and someone else is a few weeks ahead of you, they're a gold mine for answers and questions. If you're doing the Southwood program and you're just getting beat down doing it, if you talk to somebody else who's done the program, like me and every athlete I ever coached, they'll say to you, oh, you're crazy, you're trying to, and then there'll be some simple little answer that'll help you along. So I'm plugging intentional community, I'm plugging intelligent conversation. Let's get some questions going today, shall we? So our first question comes from Paul. which is a great name. What are your thoughts on someone with limited shoulder mobility regularly performing the kettlebell snatch? Now, one of the things about the kettlebell snatch versus the Olympic snatch is that I do think people with past and recovered shoulder issues can kettlebell snatch, because when you're just using the one limb, you can make some twists, some turns to make it a little bit easier and safer on your shoulder mobility, your shoulder stability, and shoulder safety. So almost universally, when someone has past shoulder problems and they can do a weight or walk, a walk with the weight up here, they seem to be able to handle the rack walk, a carry with the weight here. Almost, there's never any all the times anymore, I think, but that would be someone we might show the kettlebell snatch movement to. If we have no issues, we would take our time building up to it. But this question is here, this one of Paul's, go on. I injured my shoulder years ago, and while the injury has healed, there is a lingering lack of mobility. Nothing too severe, but definitely there's an asymmetry between the left and right. Some say the snatch could help improve mobility. Others say it should be avoided if you have that problem. Well, that's a great question, and I'll tell you why it's a great question, because you have asymmetries. So the question is this: got an injured shoulder. I'm guessing it said years ago, and the injury is healed, but there's still asymmetry. So let's make sure we walked you through that. Injury was in the past, injuries healed, still asymmetries. Should you do a particular lift? With that little matrix in place, the injury is in the past, it's been healed. And if you ever had an injury, you know that bone breaks tend to heal better, but most other, like ligaments, tendons, muscles, they never seem to really get back ever. That's just my experience. So you're gonna have asymmetries no matter what you do. My good friend Taylor Lewis, who I've noted many times on this podcast, a brilliant young man. He works with cystic fibrosis and the most famous baseball players in the world. And one of the things he's been really good to remind me about is you have one heart, but it's over here. You have one spleen. You might have two kidneys, but you have 3 lobes on one side of your body and your lungs, and 2 on the other. You've got one liver and it's offset. If you're a thrower of any kind, a kicker, a striker of any kind, you probably have your throwing or kicking side is probably not as strong as the blocking other side. So like with a discus thrower, my right arm is really strong and my left leg is really strong because it has to do the blocking. The driving right leg is more of a whip. The block has to be more as strength and strong. So I am a mess of asymmetries, and most of the people I work with are asymmetrical. You can really see it in my shoulders, how my right shoulder hangs down so much from all those years of discus throwing. If you were to do some kind of assessment on me, one of the things you might say is, yeah, you probably shouldn't snatch or kettlebell snatch, and yet it's a foundational part of my training. It's usually 3 days a week. So, Paul, the first step on this question is, when we look at asymmetries, you just have to shrug your shoulder as a coach, a trainer, even as a self-trained person, and just say, yeah, I have asymmetries, but I still got to get the work done. That's a long sentence, a long introduction to the whole point. We have asymmetries, most people, so we do little workarounds. The upside of the kettlebell snatch is that by its design, it allows you to work around shoulder issues. Now, if you can't get to a full lockout because of your shoulder, don't do them. If you can, weight or walk and rack walk, and you could even go even farther than that and do the bottoms up kettlebell walk, rack walk, the bottoms up kettlebell weight or walk, great. Check that out, take your time. if there is some, if you have some exercises you can do. I like hanging. I feel if I can hang, I can kettlebell snatch. It's a very simple little thing. The benefits of the kettlebell snatch are a little different than the rest of the kettlebell world. For one thing, you can almost always do more kettlebell snatches. If I was to have you, it's kind of like high rep back squats. And funny, we have a question on that today too. The thing about high rep back squats, just like kettlebell snatches, it's believable that you can always do one more. And so the kettlebell snatch, of course, it's a swing that ends up in the overhead, the waiter walk position and the overhead lockout position. It is a full body movement, and the stroke on it is incredibly long. So it is the stroke of a clean and press. So it's a long lift. The weight, the implement moves a long way. And you notice that because as you do kettlebell snatches, I get this great response from this, my heart and lungs. I notice almost immediately, I get this really bad sounding breath that makes it sound like I'm about to die. And frankly, when I did so it's called the Secret Service Snatch Test. You don't hear much about it anymore because it's really hard and most people can't do it, so we don't talk about it. As a man, you take the 24 kilo bell and you snatch it 200 times in 10 minutes. Not the 100 times in 5, but the 210. I was told that to be able to do a program, I had to be able to press half my body weight with one hand, which is the beast, okay, the beast, the 106, the 48 kilo, and do the Secret Service snatch test in the same half an hour. That's what someone told me to do, and I did it. The interesting thing, I think I probably could have pressed that bell many times with both hands, both before and after that snatch test. But I'll say this, I'll probably never do that snatch test again. It was exhausting. If you think the RKC standard of 100 snatches in 5 minutes is hard, 210, I know it's twice as much work, but it's more than twice as much because you're coming into that second round of 100 fairly exhausted. And I will say, in my case, I'm sure a lot of the reps got a little sloppy. But once you get into that 150, 160, 170 range, you can't be sloppy anymore. You have to have your technique locked down again, even more so than the first 100. So it's interesting. You get exhausted, but to keep doing it, you have to be even more precise. Being precise, exhausted, to me, is the highest standard of performance. Write that down. That's a pretty good thing to remember. I have several videos on my YouTube channel about how to do the kettlebell snatch and some training ideas. The most important thing I think I do when I teach it is I train and I think of the kettlebell snatch from the top down. I think the reps start and finish here. So this is mentally where I start that rep. And of course, I spend a lot of time teaching people how to drop it effectively, because what we're trying to do is set up an appropriate hinge, an appropriate swing to snap the bell back up. I can see why, Paul, if you're going to choose an exercise to have concerns with, I'm glad you've talked about the kettlebell snatch, because remember, anytime you do something ballistically, that's when all the volume goes through the roof. That's when all those dials get turned up to 11. So if you have bad technique in the kettlebell snatch, well, and you twist or you turn or you're hitting that injury with high speed, with ballistic force, which very often can lead to damage. In your case, and this will just make me feel happier, why don't you do some clean and presses for a while? One-handed clean and press. Do that for a couple of weeks and establish that you have no tweaking. Now, the thing about the clean and press is it is a massive shoulder movement. However, it is a little bit slower than the kettlebell snatch. When I was getting ready for my RKC, and there's that one workout in preparation where you do 75 clean and press, 75 pull-ups. So it's 75 clean and press left, 75 clean and press right, and 75 total pull-ups in the workout. You know, when I finished that workout, and I can just remember just thinking how, and I hate to use the word, but how swole my shoulders had become doing that workout to a place I actually experienced in my career before. It was fascinating. I felt like young Arnold in his 1967 article in Muscular Development on how to build the shoulders, and I felt pumped and primed. So I hope that answers your question, Paul. Once again, when it comes to injuries from the past, if you did your due diligence in your recovery and your rehab, and there's still issues, keep nudging the improvement forward and do your best to intelligently and thoughtfully add those movements, especially the ballistic movements. It's an excellent question, Paul. Thank you. So, real quickly to summarize, if you've been injured, and it doesn't matter what the exercise you're going to ask, and the injuries in the past, you've done your rehab, you've been healed, but you still have asymmetries, find some slower, similar movements to add as you build your way up to those ballistic movements. And as you find out if you work with my movement matrix, if the ballistic movements are not to be used because the fear of injury or the reality that injury is right around the corner, remember, it's always okay to do isometric movements. It's almost universally. It's always okay for most people to do some form of grinding movements. And then, of course, test yourself ballistically after that. Thanks, good question. We have a question from Mark. And Mark asks a question that's been around for, probably since people started stepping back from racks with weight on their shoulders. Why do high rep squats work so well for mass? For body size, hypertrophy. Is the prolonged time under tension, do squats produce more testosterone than other lifts? Well, that's an interesting question. Now that would be an interesting study. That would take a lot of blood work. You'd have to be, that would be a hard one to get done at a university, but that's an interesting question. Wow, that's an interesting question. I don't know if I would trust the results, but that's an interesting question. I heard there was a study where high school athletes did nothing but squats and their arms grew an inch, but I haven't been able to find that study. A study, huh? I don't know about the study, but I've seen it happen, but I haven't seen a study on it. I was hoping you could expand on the topic because I find it fascinating. In your experience, have you seen an upper and lower limit in terms of reps? Does it apply to front squats or goblet squats or non-squat exercises? Are there any ideas like this that at first seemed odd to you, but proved great in terms of results? You're asking the basic question. Why are squats so good for building mass? It's funny because I hate the idea that back squats are the answer to any and all questions. And a lot of people I work with don't need back squats. However, the thing that makes back squats so good are high rep back squats for building mass. My program, Mass Made Simple, I'm going to ask you to squat your body weight 50 times at the end of this. One set of 50. I'll tell you something, after you squatted your body weight for 50 reps in the back squat, I've never heard someone who actually did it who said, oh yeah, that was a breeze. It's just hard work. So you ask a good question. Is it the time under tension? Maybe so. I think there's a lot of factors to it. The first is when you back squat, you don't use your hands. And the hands are often limiting exercises. In my book coming out, the Easy Strength Omni book, that's one of the reasons I think that dips, the upper body exercise dips and the high rep squat really can be beneficial for most people who want to build mass. The issue with both exercises is that my adolescent athletes hate dips because it hurts the sternum. And once they seem to hit a certain age, that grows in. But I mean, if it's when you're 30, it's a little late for a teenage athlete. Also, with squatting, there's issues. I would usually argue the big technical issues. You got to make sure people are squatting correctly and appropriately. And if someone's doing a set of 50 squats with body weight, I would like to see squat number 1 look exactly like squats number 49 to 50. I don't want to see a whole bunch of, I don't want to see that body start to bend, turn into that squatty good morning squat exercise. I don't want to see the knees coming in and coming out on every rep. I mean, there's going to be some wiggling, there's going to be some movement. It's going to happen in a set of 50 reps. But I'd like to eliminate that as best I can. I know online people are always perfect, but in the real world, it's real hard to do that. So the reason I think squats are so good, and it's the same thing, it brings us right back to the question on kettlebell snatches. You probably can do one more. When the first time I did 225 for 50, that's when I set the standard at the Pacifica Barbell Club, a long time ago too. If you'd have said to me, to save the planet, you have to do 5 more reps, I think I could have handled it. If you'd have said, to save that infant right over there, you have to do 1 more rep, I'd have got 1 more rep. It'd have been hard, but I could have done it. When you finish the snatch test, people always have plenty of reps. When they finish the snatch test, when they pass it with the 100 reps in 5 minutes, almost universally they can do more reps. I mean, if you finish it 459, and I said for $100 you do 1 more, easy to do with not a problem. And I think, Mark, that's part of the reason the high rep squat is so good. You can probably do more. And so it is time under tension because of that. But since you can always do more, there's under load, your body is being forced to adapt. There's no easy road around adaptation here. You must improve. So Mark's question is pretty simple when you come right down to it. Why are squats good for building mass? And my thought is this: you probably can always do 1 more rep if you're doing high rep squats. And that just causes the body to work in overdrive. You asked a good question, the original question about, has anyone ever studied the testosterone hit from doing things like high rep squats? I'm not even sure it's testosterone. I think it'd be all the survival hormones, because your body freaks out when you do high rep squats. I can remember doing them and coming home and just being ravenous. I mean, just, you almost are, non-thinking when you make food decisions. You just start shoveling things in your mouth. My mother was not pleased. But by God, I put on 40 pounds in 4 months, 162 to 202, drug-free. And hats off to Dick Notmeyer for our training program. But I tell you, high rep squats can be game changers. So thank you, good question. We have a question from Russ. I have had to put my train on pause for a week because of a moderate to severe flu. Now that I'm coming out of it, I wonder whether I should return to where I stopped or restart the program. Boy, I hope he tells me what the program is. I'm wondering whether I should return to where I stopped or restart the program, because the past week was basically a detraining. How do you usually handle an athlete who came down with an illness in the middle of a program? Would the answer to the first question be different if I was in the middle or at the end of a program? Well, it really comes down to a simple question. What should you do while sick? There's no medical advice I'm about to give you, but we were always taught that if you had a fever, that you should ease up. Now, if you had a cough or you had a stuffy nose, or but you didn't have a fever, that was different, and you should just basically train through it. Now, I've been told that I'm going to die with a cough because I constantly cough. But so for me, I mean, is a sign that I could probably still train. If I'm burning up, I should be in bed. I should be drinking fluids and probably watching, I don't know, something on the internet or TV, or just watch some dumb TV shows. So that's step number one. But you say clearly moderate to severe flu. Now, if you have the flu with its diarrhea and its vomiting, you probably are going to have to take a step back, because what's been happening to your system. As I've said a million times, the best ab workout you can do is vomit. Ha ha ha. It's always tough to answer this question because it depends on so much. As an American football coach, we get a thing, we used to call it the gamboo. Right around about halfway through the season, the entire football team would get sick, including the coaching staff. And we all had the noises you'd make. It was pretty gross. I always thought that since we knew it was going to happen, why don't we just build that in? So somewhere around the middle part of the season, just have a couple of training weeks where we just went out with helmets on and no conditioning, and just went over the key points in the game, the strategic points in games, and try to make things work. I would usually say this. Usually when someone gets sick, now if it's a 12-week program, here's an example, so just follow along. You're in a 12-week program, you get sick week 6, I would slide back not all the way to 1, but to maybe either week 3 or week 4. Recently, I worked with somebody who was on a program, because of being military, had to take some time off, and slid back. They were doing a fairly important program of mine, the post-deployment program, and I told them to slide back. They were in the late part of month 2, I think week 8. I told them to slide back to the end of week 4 and repeat weeks 5, 6, 7. So that's what I think you should do. Don't go all the way back. Step back and just, even if you have, I hope you keep a training journal or training diary. Look back on those numbers from a few weeks ago and go, yeah, that I can do that workout again. I felt comfortable doing that. If you're like, I'm not going to do that, slide back. And if you have to go back to ground zero and restart at week 1, that's fine too. I always tell people that, these 6-week programs, I figured it out one time, and it was a big number, but I've been lifting since 1965. And if I did 6-week programs since 1965, it's a big number, how many 6 weeks I've gone through, but, losing a few weeks here and a few weeks there in the big scheme of things isn't very important. If you're peaking for an athletic performance, this actually might be a gift, because it's going to make you readdress everything. You're going to have to think about your contest conditioning, where you are. If you're an Olympic lifter like me, or a weight sport, you have to look at your body weight. I hate to say it, but the flu might be a boon if you have to lose weight. I mean, it's not the most glamorous way to lose weight, diarrhea and vomiting, but it works. So Russ's question is a common question. What do I do if I get sick? 2 things. First, should you train when you're sick? I was taught by my coaches, Coach Lahadi and Coach Mon, if you have a fever, you shouldn't train. If you have a stuffy nose and you have that kind of thing, be appropriate, work through it. Obviously, if you've got diarrhea, I'm not spotting you, so stay home. And if you're vomiting, I don't want you in my gym either. When you get over the illness, the most important thing for you to do is give yourself a break. Look over what you're planning to do. If you have to, slide back an appropriate number of weeks on a training program to where it's easy again. And if you can't find where that entry point, then I would start at the beginning again. If you're getting ready for a contest, then you really need to sit down, look at your body weight, look at your training, look at how many weeks you have, and always remember the great words of the late great Tommy Kono. It's better to come into a contest undertrained than it is overtrained. So I always err on undertraining for a while after an illness. That's just what I do, and I hope it helps you too. Well, we got a question from Neil, which is really an interesting question. I don't want to name the place, but I'll just call it the 24/7 gym, okay? Neil says this: can you tell me what you would recommend for someone who has access to 24/7 gym? Let's just say these guys are from another planet. Equipment that is everything except barbells, kettlebells, well, actually crappy kettlebells, I've seen them, dumbbells, every machine imaginable, Smith machines, med balls, and calisthenic accessories. What would your advice be to stick to the dumbbell, kettlebell calisthenics, or to avoid 24/7 altogether in exchange for conventional barbell training? You know, I hope you wouldn't think, Neil, and it makes me wonder if you know my work, Neil, as well. I mean, you might just note in the comments, I trained with you when I was 6. But yeah, I don't, it doesn't matter to me what equipment you have. I don't care. I mean, whatever you have, you train with. The old Brett Jones will still quote me on the time I said that if you set me in a room with just a 16K and I took it serious, I'd come out bigger, stronger, leaner on the other side if I took it serious. So if you go to Dan John University, we have a thing called the workout generator. So question, let me answer it this way. This is the first option to how I answer your question. Go to Dan John University, get the workout generator, and then fill in the equipment you want to use at this facility. You'll find all you do is you look at you just touch the piece of equipment, and then the system populates your training for the equipment that you have. Honestly, Neil, if all you have is a 16-kilo kettlebell or a 35-pound dumbbell, and you take it serious, you can get a great workout in. I've been at motels that have just had like one 40-pound dumbbell, and I have just said, okay, go for it, and have had a wonderful workout. Yeah, obviously the reps are a little higher, but it can be brutal. So that would be answer number one, okay? If you're a typical male, you probably want to utilize that 24 kilo, the 53-pound kettlebell the most. So you probably want to do the bulk of your training at this facility with probably between the 35 and 60-pound kettlebell dumbbell range. That would be just a general swath of the hand for men, okay? For women, obviously, a little bit lighter, though sneaking up on those heavier bells. Most of the women I work with have no issues with the 16, the 20, 24. But obviously, it's the old, your mileage may vary. The other thing is, should we avoid these 24/7 gyms, the ones that have candy and pizza and things like that? I gotta tell you, what bothers me about that one gym is they have this thing called the lunk alarm. In this day and age, where, like someone like myself, I have no need. I mean, I guess I don't want to offend people straight up because that's just not the way I was taught. But I watch every word I use now. I be very careful. With the other night, pardon me, I was with an old friend and we were talking about one of our childhood friends. So sorry. Who we used to use certain words about, and then they weren't, inflammatory about sexual orientation. We used to describe his IQ in a little bit more negative terms because, in hindsight, he might have been book smart, but he was kind of idiot in real life. And we just kind of laughed about how the way we used to talk about our friends. There's a very good The Office show about this, about how, using certain words, you literally don't mean much by it, but it impacts people. I mean, a guy like me, I go to this 24/7 gym. I'm a lunk. I mean, I breathe loud when I train because, I've suffered my whole life, my entire life, from lung issues. I get this disease called pleurisy, and my doctor said I'm the only non-smoker he's ever had to deal with pleurisy, and I have scar tissue in my lungs from my childhood pneumonia issues. So I breathe funny, so someone's going to walk over to the wall and press a button, and I get in trouble for working out. I lift heavy weights because I'm really, really strong, because I've been lifting weights a long time. And if you're offended by the fact that I'm stronger than you, well, then you're going to get offended by the fact that certain people make more money than you too. I'm not a fan of these gyms. I've always been a fan of first having your own home facility. Now, as I've said before, your own home facility might be a single kettlebell. Maybe it's just a glute loop. Maybe it's just the floor. But I always think your first option should be being able to train at home. In case a pandemic shows up, a snowstorm shows up, you always have the ability to train at home. I'm a big fan of that. I've had a home gym since 1965. In the 8th grade, I saved up literally every quarter, every nickel, every dime I made to buy my first incline bench press with a rack so I could squat at home. I've had home gyms since my whole life, and I continue to, my home gym was called by Men's Health to be America's top gym. Then after that, the next step would be your community gym, or your intentional community. That's that group of friends that you should get together with like one day a week and train, and let people bring different pieces of equipment, and you can try out things. For example, I tried out the first suspension trainers. I tried out various ab wheels on these groups, and it really can be a game changer. You get a chance to do a workout or 2 or 3 with a piece of equipment, and then you figure, okay, it's good, or as often happens, what a piece of crap. Okay, and then after that, I think it does help to have a public facility to go to. For me, sometimes I have an issue because I want a total in the Olympic lifts, and it's really hard for me sometimes to total in my own house. I am putting together a new system for the upcoming year so I can Olympic lift better at my home. But it's nice to have a public facility that has really, really good equipment that you can train heavy sometimes. Having said that, these 24/7 gyms don't want that. They want that monthly fee, that $9.95, that $1 down, $10 a month for the rest of your life, because they ping it into your credit cards, and it's a reoccurring fee that's really hard to get out of. If you can find a rec club, a community club, certain organizations have gyms. The senior center I go to has a gym. Honestly, it's a senior center, so it's not exactly a place to try to break the American record in the clean and jerk. But you might be able to find, and if you have your own home gym that you train most of the time at, you have a community group you train once a week with, and then you have this other facility that you can go to once a month, once every few months. To me, that's the best system. I'm not a big fan of these 24/7 clubs that rip you off. You ever notice how the swimming pool is always broken, the sauna's always broken, the whirlpools are always down? Yeah, because they don't care. They don't keep them up. I'm amazed. A friend of mine told me that the gym's sauna didn't work. I have a sauna in my house. I can't imagine a sauna not working. The things are idiot proof, but because they don't keep things up, because basically they just want that money from you every month, and then they shut down, or they change their names and become somebody else. We got a gym near my house that's probably been 5 or 6 different gyms since we've moved in, and I hate that kind of thing. So Neil's question is simple. What do you think about 24/7 gyms? Personally, I don't like them. I understand the need for them, but I think this: set up your home gym first. You just cobble together some equipment, use the workout generator, make a perfect workout. Once a week, get together with your friends and make up a workout, and every so often, go find a recreational facility to get a workout in. Community gyms are wonderful. I know not everyone lives in my hometown with one of the finest community gyms in the world, but they're every place. In my hometown, where I live, we have outdoor facilities, we have park courses, we have wonderful indoor facilities, we have outdoor facilities. To me, I'd much rather use the city's facilities, the county's facilities, than give it to some corporation who does not give a poopy about anything except the almighty dollar or euro or pound or whatever. Thank you. Good question. We have a question from Brett, and it's good to hear. This is a fun little question to finish off today's podcast. Hey, Coach, I first heard you from Pavel praising you on a podcast, and I understand you've worked together at RKC for many years. Yeah, Pavel and I, it's interesting, we met a long time ago and we became instant friends. He's a very smart guy. He takes copious notes. He pays close attention to things. What have you learned from Pavel that has helped you the most, and what have you taught him that is significant to you? What I learned from Pavel, well, we've been friends a long time. Okay, let's go with the big one first. The thing I like a lot about Pavel is an obsessive learner. One of his books, now he doesn't like the book, but there's something I do like about it. It's called From Russia with Tough Love. And what he does in this book is he takes a lot of the forum posts at Dragon Door and he incorporates them into the book. So, but what I like about this, so a swing is a swing is a swing. We all, of course, until you go online, you see the crap you see there. But if you're teaching the swing and you would send in a little idea, he would capture it and put it in the book. If you were at a workshop and you said, here's something I do, and he'd nod his head and then he would quote you and put it in the book. So the thing I like about Pavel is his ability to constantly is it canny, constant and never-ending improvement. He is a canny guy. When you read his work, you see that he's always trying to improve. Now, do a lot of people do that? Yeah, I think so. But it's so clear in his work. The next thing, when we did meet it the first time, we met at Charles Staley's boot camp. It's a famous story I cover in books. Don't worry about it. But he basically gave me the Easy Strength template, and I became, I would say, the number one apostle of Easy Strength. And basically, it's for 40 days, pick 5 exercises and do them. Never do more than 10 reps. I had already had the rule of 10 before I met Pavel, and Percy Sarity had done the 5 movements with the rule of 10, but it was kind of nice to see that. So it was, and that's it right there. Make sure you hear that. I came in, when I first met Pavel, I had a ton of experience. Almost probably 40 years in the weight room, probably, this ages me, 22, 23, 24, 25 years as a coach. So I had this vast experience, and I was trying to become the oldest person to ever qualify for the Olympic trials. So I have this vast amount of experience, and I'm kind of bouncing into problems here. Pavel and I have this wonderful conversation. My brother Gary was there too, and it really was it was one of the greatest experiences in my life, the first time I met Pavel. But don't forget, my brother Gary was there too, so that makes it even a more beautiful experience for me. But I have all this experience. I share with Pavel the issue. He summarizes, it's only 6 sentences. His advice is only 6 sentences. he summarizes that advice in 6 sentences, and that gave me a clear path for the next, oh gosh, now it's been 20 years. So I've been lifting weights a long time. To me, that's the important thing. So, gentle listener, and especially Brett here, I really appreciate this. There's a great lesson coming out of this. When I met Pavel, I had a lot of experience. I had a lot of knowledge. I knew who Percy was. I knew we had the rule of 10. We had all these things in place. Pavel clears it up in just a few sentences. We talked about all kinds of other things too. And boom, that gives me 20 years to lead from there. Pavel, you know, the evil Russian thing, you know, is difficult for me, especially with my personal history and, you know, some of the events of the last few years. But one of the things I do like about Pavel with that whole the evil Russian thing is that he does have this ability to say, do this. And, you know, I'll be honest, that's a weakness of mine, because no matter what conversation comes up, no matter what happens, my brain has to see the entire rainbow, the entire spectrum. You know, I have to know if the Egyptian easy strengthers, you know, were doing that when they were putting up the pyramid, you know, the pyramids. You know, whether did the Stonehenge people, what kind of loaded carries? I have to make sure I let myself get caught up in every nuance that sometimes I need someone to say, do this. And that's been what Pavel's been so good for me. So your question, I really appreciate, Brett, is this, you know, what have I learned from Pavel? And if you just want to summarize very quickly, the 2 best things I've learned from Pavel, first is his absolutely rigorous ability to keep learning, to take notes, to think things through, to listen to other people, and then have the dignity and the good sense to let people know, I got this from this person. Sometimes it'll be funny to read his books, because it'll say, you know, Magic Martian 4000 said that, you know, because it's someone online. Use your real names, online people. You know, you don't have to be anonymous. You know, be yourself. I like that, is that he is a rigorous listener for insights and ideas about how to make things better. And then number 2, with the evil Russian persona, it's the whole idea of do this. And sometimes what you guys need to do is stop with all the nonsense. You know, like the late great Dave Draper used to say about leaning out, eat tuna fish and drink water. And then people say, well, what else? No, that's it. You know, do that for 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months, then get back to me about leaning out. You know, that's a tough do this program. But if someone tells you to do 5 exercises and follow the rule of 10 and, you know, do it for the next 40 workouts, it will change your life if you, of course, do this and take copious notes. That's not bad. That's there's more, obviously, but that's pretty good too. Two lessons, yeah. Well, that was a good group today, folks. Listen, if you have questions, you email them to podcast@danjohnuniversity.com. I'll do my best to answer each and every one. And as I always say, until next time, let's all keep on lifting and learning and take copious notes.